Hey guys, it's Wednesday. I hope that you all are having a great week so far. So on this video, we're going to talk about several different things. If you remember last week, I did not do a project update video. And the reason why I did that way was because, a review takes 2 to 3 minutes. And so I figured let's just start putting a couple of them together. So I'm not going to be doing these updates as often as I used to. There's not going to be an update on every single build as I do the build. So this video is going to cover 2 different builds that I did. The first one was the gardener's toolbox. That's what I call it, the gardener's box. And then the second one is the simple cabinet door. But first, I want to address something. If you follow me on Facebook and you're part of any of these woodworking groups, I want to give you a little word of advice. Be careful what you post. My last video on 2 different of the maybe 5 or 6 groups I'm part of, there was some people that just really had nothing better to do than to just act like an idiot and post some pretty negative comments. And so kind of creating a lot of controversy. People saying this cabinet thing was completely not even a beginner thing, not how you make a cabinet, and then some more comments that I won't even mention on here. Stuff like that does not faze me. I don't let it into me. And quite honestly, I just don't care. You could curse me out. It's not going to make a difference because it's not going to affect me. It only affects you, makes you look stupid in front of everybody else. So what I'm going to do is actually turn what those people tried to make negative and use against me bad. I'm going to turn it and use it for the goods. So my challenge is to you is to think before you type. If you find a video and you don't like it, but you want to let those people know, think about it. You're only going to make yourself look bad, and in the long run, you're only doing yourself a disservice. And if the other person has their head on square, it's not going to affect them. It's not going to faze them. And so just think before you do that and realize that what you're doing is really not going to be constructive at all. Now, if you have constructive criticism, make sure you word it that way so people know that. And also, if you are going to leave a comment about safety, I think that's something that you can totally agree with, that if it's a safety issue that you're seeing, that's a major safety issue. If somebody's not wearing safety glasses when they're cutting a table saw, it might be their preference, whatever. And if they get hurt, they get hurt. But if they're doing something where they're turning on the saw and their hand is way too close to it at the beginning, or they're doing some bad practices like trying to cut on a table saw with no fence at all, then you need to say something, because that's just sharing advice. But don't come out and just be super duper negative. I don't think that's wise. It makes you look stupid. So like I said, I'm not even gonna, it doesn't faze me. It just doesn't faze me. And I choose to let it in one ear and out the other. And then the simplest way to stop that is just to disable comments, and takes care of that. So okay, so now we're gonna go back to the gardener's toolbox. And I'm calling it the gardener's toolbox because it looked like a toolbox. And I wanted to make this thing for Christopher of Midwest Man Mountain because him and I have kind of developed a friendship off of YouTube, and I've really enjoyed chatting with him. We trade advice sometimes, so it's been really cool. And I wanted to give him something back because we did the collaboration earlier this year. And so if you haven't seen that, you can check that out in the cards above. And so this was something I wanted to do for him. I also wanted to be able to make something to practice some techniques that I've never done before. The joints at the edge, they were different. The way I did the handle was different. The bottom was a little different. And really, it was one of the first projects I did and didn't use any nails or screws or anything of that nature. So I really enjoyed and loved how it turned out. You can't really tell too much in the video, and I did say this in the video, but it took me about 3 months to do. It was not a fast-paced project. And that's just the way sometimes my projects work out. They take a long time. I talked about it a lot before I even made the video. So sometimes my projects just take a long time. But usually when they take a long time, they actually turn out better than you might have thought they would have turned out before. So I can't really point out a lot of negatives that I have on it. My pins aren't really for functionality on the sides of this box. They're more for looks. They originally were going to be for the functionality, but then once I milled everything down, I realized that I made the edge too small. So by the time I made it narrow enough so that it would hold itself in that side, the hole for the pin was just too small and it's going to break the wood. And also on one side where all the spalting was going on the handle, that wood on that side was beginning to get a little bit fragile. So just gluing them in there and using the glue to kind of get some strength in it. I thought about using some epoxy because that really sets well, or a resin, but I don't have any resin in here. I didn't want to buy it just particularly for that. And also wood glue, it does an okay job. It's not going to be the world's best, but it does hold stronger than the wood, so that was a good thing. Okay, and then lastly, the very last project, which we talked about earlier, was this cabinet door. This was kind of an experiment to see what's this going to look like for my wife. Didn't want to go too in depth on it because it literally took me about half hour to do. I wanted it so that she could see what these possible doors are going to look like in our kitchen. And she likes it. We're going to make the sides a little wider. And the only reason why it's painted white is because she's going to be doing chalk paint distressing on these boards. And in order to do that, I felt it was better to already have some sort of base on there versus her trying to use that stuff on bare wood. It would probably take more coats with that, and that stuff is a little more expensive. So we'll put a basic acrylic or latex, I don't know what it was. It's somewhere over here. I put a basic white paint on it just to kind of give it a base for this chalk paint to adhere to. She's done this once before on something else in our house that had kind of like one of those, it's really cheap. It's a cardboard MDF dresser, and then it's got that plastic or almost like a paper film that looks like wood on it. So she did it on that. Turned out great. No problems at all. I'm really proud of her on that. And so she's going to be doing that on these cabinets, but it was a very simple cabinet, and you know, all that stuff that I got from that video, that's the point. It's a simple cabinet. It's not a in-depth hard cabinet door. And I'm actually I am about to make 2 cabinet doors for the workshop, my tiny workshop remodel series, because I'm got a space that needs 2 doors. So that will be coming up soon on that. But the door turned out fine. You know, the beadboard on the inside was definitely something she wants to do. We don't want to do a raised panel or anything with the inset dados and all that stuff. And we're trying to make these doors very thin, because the problem in our kitchen, I mean, everybody's kitchen's tight. Even when you remodel, sometimes you feel like you still want more space. But our doors are already a certain depth, and we're going to put these special handles back on that makes it stick out a little bit more. So we wanted to keep them as thin as we could without losing strength, and also the capability of doing what I did with this board. So I can't cut a contour. I'm not going to cut nice rabbits and dados and put a nice edge on the boards. There might be rounded over with a router in the long run, but she wants to go the very primitive rustic country look, and that's pretty much what that is. It's not your fancy high-end stuff. Now I can do that, alright, but I'm not going to when that's what my wife wants. So we're going to do something more like that here in the workshop. And the only reason why I'm going to go through that effort is for practice. You know, I always love to try new things in the workshop and then see if they work. You know, for the cabinet doors, I did our kitchen cabinet where we put our oven. I had to make it about 3 inches wider. So when I did the oven, I had to basically remake that entire cabinet. And the only way I was able to do that was how I did all this stuff here. The miter station was because I basically built sub-base cabinets for this thing, and they turned out fantastic, and there we have it. So I hope you enjoyed this little update. It's kind of a longer one, and hope to see you on a couple more updates coming soon. So thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment or two what your thoughts are. And like I said, I want to leave you once again with that challenge, that if you're going to make a comment that is going to be negative, just think before you type. And if it's constructive, make sure it's labeled. And you can even say, this is constructive criticism. Just be a little bit more tactful on your comments. I have not had that here on YouTube. I think the YouTube community is much better at that. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you guys that seem to have your head on level. Facebook, on the other hand, you just got to be mindful and careful. So thank you for watching again, and I'll see you next time.